Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Faerie, Fable, Librarians. I'm Simona.
And I'm Katie.
And today we're going to be discussing Legend of Vox Machina, which is on Netflix. Very excited.
Not Netflix, it's Amazon Prime.
Sorry, Amazon Prime. Joe can edit that out. Amazon Prime, I'm sorry. I'm so used to Netflix. But to give a little background on Vox Machina, I'm going to leave that to Katie because she knows.
I do. So the Legend of Vox Machina, the animated series, is based off of the first campaign that was played by Critical Role on YouTube. It was the first time they were streaming their Dungeons and Dragons game, and it's like a whole bunch of voice actors who just wanted to get together to play Dungeons and Dragons, which is a really fun game. It's a fun role-playing game where you can create your own characters, create your strengths and your weaknesses. I won't really get too much into that, only because it's really complicated and I think I would confuse a whole lot of people. But
it's a lot of fun, though.
It is a lot of fun. And each player has a certain set of dice, and depending upon the level of your dexterity or intelligence, if you roll low, then you aren't going to know anything, or you're not going to complete an action in battle. And if you roll high, then you can get a piece of information, or you can make an attack against an enemy during battle. And what I love about the show is that it follows their first campaign really closely, especially because their first season is more or less on their Briarwood arc in their campaign, which is essentially Percy DeRollo's backstory. And we find out what happened to him and his family and his ancestral home of Whitestone and who the Briarwoods are. But when they first meet the Briarwoods in Emon during this diplomatic feast, they don't do too well. And that's not because of the story that they had written out previously, but it's because of how badly the players had rolled during the first campaign when they first battle with the Briarwood. So I really, really like the fact that they did it that way.
That's why?
That's why. It's not...
luck of the dice.
Yeah, it's all based on the luck of the dice, for sure.
Oh, but you wouldn't realize that, because the way I took it was I kind of took it because once you get to know the characters and their like motley crew, that didn't seem too far off from how things would go if they were in like a moment. How they're trying their best to fit in, but everything just goes.
Yeah, but this is what was really cool, was that each of the players. So the players are Liam O'Brien, Taliesin Jaffe, Matthew Mercer, Marisha Ray, Laura Bailey, Ashley Johnson, and Travis Willingham. All very successful voice actors and actors on screen. And they sat with the writers of the animated series and pretty much went through everything that their character had went through and who their character is, what the backstory was that they had created for the game. And they took everything that was said and created essentially the story for the animated series, which I thought was really, really cool.
Oh, see, I didn't know that, but
Yeah.
it was very scene. The dinner scene is one of my favorite moments. So Katie and I thought it would be fun if we could analyze the events of Vox Machina through Joseph Campbell's Monomyth Theory. And we may not be able to cover every key point of it, but essentially Joseph Campbell came up with this theory that every myth around the world has similar concepts and features regardless of country of origin, race, or religion, which is pretty much true. You know, if you think of the Greek myths, the Roman myths, Egyptian myths,
Norse mythology.
like there's always this notion of the hero's journey, and even if you want to think to more modern stories that someone would be familiar with, if you think of Luke Skywalker's journey when he first finds out that he's going to be this Jedi, and his parentage and his both like his inner and outward journey. If you think of Katniss Everdeen in the Hunger Games, Frodo in the Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, they're all heroes, and their sort of life story follows a particular trajectory. There may be slight variations, but there's also a lot of similarities.
Yeah.
And Joseph Campbell never really discussed women in his monomyth theory, but women obviously can fit this. Like I said, if you go back to Katniss Everdeen, she fits the model of the hero and the hero's journey. So the first aspect of the hero's journey is birth. And I took all of these things from Berkeley College, their website, because I didn't want to rework anything since I figured it's perfect. So the first step is birth. So it's a fabulous circumstance surrounding conception, birth, and childhood, and it establishes the hero's pedigree. So think about Hercules. He's not thinking of the cartoon in Disney, because the cartoon in Disney made him full god. In the actual myth, he's half human and half god. So he has an incredible pedigree. It's already established.
Yeah. And also, if we're going to use like other examples aside from the Legend of Vox Machina, is Luke Skywalker, because George Lucas had actually used Joseph Campbell's monolith theory while writing Star Wars. So Luke Skywalker, he is the son of, as we find out later on in the prequel series, not so much later on in the original series, that he is the son of Anakin Skywalker, who was this prominent Jedi, and Padme Amidala, who is the senator of Naboo, previously the Queen of Naboo. And although he doesn't know this at the time, but he comes from a rather substantial pedigree of parents, and he starts off at his uncle's moisture farm in Tatooine with his aunt.
Yeah. So if we take the first one, none of the characters really, and of course I'm forgetting names. Thank God I wrote them down. So Percival is the only character, I guess, that you would say has pedigree, but it's more that he doesn't have like a supernatural kind of pedigree. So I don't think any of the characters necessarily fit the first element, which is birth. Well, but that's okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
any circumstance of birth.
Yeah.
Some kind of pedigree.
Right. Well, I mean, Calith, the elf character that the full elf character that Marisha Ray voices and created, she comes from a druid people, and she is actually the next in line to lead her clan.
Right.
So this journey that she's taking, because she left her people to see the world and to learn more about what it is to be a leader and all that other stuff. So she also comes from a very high standing pedigree within her people's culture.
So the next part is call to adventure, and Vox Machina fits that.
Yes.
So the hero is called to adventure by some external event or messenger, and the hero can either accept or reject the call to adventure. Yep. Now, when their call to adventure begins, it's during a brawl in this tavern.
Yes.
And essentially, there's this reward because the kingdom is being ravaged by this creature of unknown origin at the time.
At the time, we discover that it's a dragon.
A dragon. And they essentially need coin. They're in desperate need of funds.
They're broke. And they need coin.
Yes. So some of the crew is a little, do we really want to do this? Some of them is like, yes, we need it. So they're driven at first by the need for coin. So it's monetary, which some heroes, that is the case. Like if there's glory to be had, it's not necessarily always this noble and basically I'll do it for nothing.
Right. So I think another example of that, again, I'm using Star Wars examples because I love Star Wars and I know Star Wars very well, is Han Solo. Han Solo joins Luke Skywalker and Ben Kenobi first and foremost for the monetary gain because he's in debt with Jabba the Hutt.
Yeah.
It's not until at the end of A New Hope, from the original trilogy, that he is involved, that he becomes involved with the rebellion just for the sole fact of being part of the cause.
Exactly. So Vox Machina journeys to the palace. They meet the council. The council is not terribly impressed by them. I wouldn't blame them. They've just come back from a brawl. They're covered in vomit. Some of them are. But they assure the king that they can get the job done. And
Yes.
Scanlan does it in epic fashion by starting to sing
Of course he does.
a ballad of
'Cause
why
he's-
they're awesome.
I should point out the reason why he starts singing is because he is a bard.
Yeah.
And in the game Dungeons and Dragons, a bard usually tells the tales and sings of the
So,
party.
It's very
So,
fitting, but he does it in an awesome way.
Yes.
So they managed to convince the king. So I think the king says, "What's he impressed by? Like why he thinks they'll be like? What does the king say? I remember he says something. Oh, the bear.
Yeah. Trinket is Vax's, who's a half elf. Her pet is Trinket, and he's a bear.
Yeah. So the king is impressed by their bear, and he goes, "You got it." So they set off on the adventure. You know, high on the thought we're going to get a lot of gold. And like the next step would be helpers and amulets. So either the helper could be supernatural origin, or so like a lot of the times it's a wizard. Think Lord of the Rings. An old
Gandalf.
man could also be Gandalf. Think Dumbledore and Harry Potter. Obi-Wan Kenobi in Star Wars when he first goes to Luke. A dwarf, a crone, a fairy godmother. You think of Cinderella.
Yep.
And the helper commonly gives the hero a protective amulet or weapon for the journey. Now, with the case of Vox Machina, they all have assorted skills. They definitely have weapons. They have no, like, they have weapons galore.
And I mean, 3 characters have magic within them anyway. So
Yeah.
they use magic. So that's Pike, Scanlan, and Caliph.
Yeah, and Pike is a gnome cleric. She's awesome. They have the muscle in Grog Strongjaw, which he's dumb, but he's lovable. He will grow on you, this character. So in a sense, a lot of them already have that magical element. So the helper's amulet feature, that could be one thing.
Yeah.
So eventually, they realize that they're facing a dragon, and I guess that would be the moment. So the next part is crossing the threshold. I'm just reading it quickly. So upon reaching the threshold of adventure, the hero must undergo some sort of ordeal in order to pass from the everyday world into the world of adventure.
Yeah.
So, I mean, because there's sort of 2 parts to the first season. One is what you think will be the overall, like, big bad element, and then it's finally revealed, no, this is. So there's 2 parts to this. So eventually when they figure out they're facing a dragon, some of the members think, okay, it's time to sort of leave. We don't need to do this. We don't really care about people. Which I guess could be like, these are the tests that they undergo.
Yeah.
So one of the other steps is tests. So the hero travels to another world. In this case, they're journeying along in the kingdom. And he has to face trials. And these trials are essentially to test his mettle. Whether or not he can truly overcome these. And sometimes these trials could even be mental, emotional. They're not always necessarily physical.
Yeah.
And going back to Luke Skywalker, and this is a spoiler, when he finds out that Darth Vader is his father.
What?
I know. So
Haven't gotten there yet.
I told you. It's a spoiler.
Joe's lying. He's seen it. Don't believe him.
So he has to go through that mental, emotional anguish because
Yeah.
the man that he's been fighting says, I'm your father. And Luke goes, and there's that epic moment where he goes, no. So it's like the moment where he's tested.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when they sort of figure out, and this is where I think it could be in 2 parts, when they have to undergo this test of trying to figure out how to defeat the dragon, which is almost indestructible.
Yeah.
And then you learn, spoiler, he has a human form, which I kind of figured. I was like, oh my God, he must be like human.
Yeah.
Because there's a scene where it's like, it was flapping, but now there's footprints. It was like, yes, he's a human. He can transform into a dragon. lo and behold, he's a human that transforms into a dragon.
And a human in high power in the society that they live in. He's part of the council. He
Yeah.
advises Prince. He's technically a prince, not a king. The Prince of Iman. So
Yeah, and that dragon's ultimate goal is to restore dragons to their former glory.
right.
Where they used to rule. It goes, humans were our food, our slaves, and we will have dominion over you once more. They kill him. End of spoiler. So, and so that would be the climax final battle, the first part, and they receive their reward. They get money, they become heroes of the realm.
Actually, they open the chest and there's no coin in the chest whatsoever. It's a key, and a key to a manor that's been in disuse for a very long time. So it's crumbling and there's holes in the roof, and
They get very disappointed.
They do. They
Well,
do.
first they have trouble opening the door, which is always funny. They have a thing with doors, Vox Machina.
Okay, so this is where the roll of the die play in, because Vex, I get those characters confused all the time, so I apologize. Ooh, you have pictures. So it's Vex, the brother to Vex. He is a rogue, so he's able to pick locks. So you have to roll in order to pick the lock, and they rolled low every time they tried to break into a door. So the doors became their arch nemesis during this particular part of the
Because
campaign.
it's really funny. Like, Grog goes, I'll smash the door. He goes, no, we cannot smash it. I'll use mat. So it is very funny. Doors are a big thing during this whole thing. So like Katie said, they gain access to the castle or manor. They're not terribly impressed by what they see. They think, okay, fine, we just went through all this for naught. But then they discover, which this is the funny part, the entranceway to this cave, which is through a portrait of a naked woman of some kind of origin. I don't know what creature she's supposed to be. Grog is the one naturally who discovers it, sticks his hands because he wants to touch a certain part that I can't say, and his hands go through and they realize, portal. They go through it, they enter the cave.
I should say this is before they gain the reward. This is where they defeat the dragon.
Yeah, it's part of the whole trials thing, and
Yeah.
they come across, they get a horde, everyone's excited, but I think it's Vex who realizes that something is not quite right by everything.
Yeah.
And she was like, or is it Pike? Was it Pike? Or was it like, this is just too odd? I forgot who it was.
I don't remember. I think if anything, it would have been Pike that would have
Probably
said
Pike,
that
because
this is
the girls tend to be a little smarter than the boys during this thing. So I think Pike is the one who realizes something is not quite right, and lo and behold, something is not quite right. That's when they see the dragon, and the dragon is, kicking their butts for like the first few minutes, and they think we're all gonna die. Was this really worth it? They start questioning their life choices.
Yeah. Yeah.
But eventually, as all heroes do, they the climax, they defeat the dragon. They're very happy. They got gold. They go to the prince, not king. And they basically say, we have solved your issue. And basically they get named protectors of the realm. And that sort of ends the first arc of the first season, because you think that's going to be the major thing in their lives that happens.
No.
That is not.
No. And then in enters Silas and Delilah Briarwood, who is the scourge of Whitestone, which was the home of Percy, or Percival. We all call him Percy. And that's like their real entrance into adventure, because they decide to help Percy. They decide to help Whitestone eventually once they get to Whitestone.
And that could be the fight portion. So after the climax final battle, Joseph Campbell talks about flights, where after accomplishing the mission, the hero must return to the threshold of adventure and prepare for a return to the everyday world, which is essentially what Vox Machina is hoping to do. Like,
Right.
They're protectors of the realm, but they're still very much interested in living their lives as they always have.
Right.
So if the hero has angered the opposing forces by stealing the elixir or killing a powerful monster, in this case, Percival sees the Briarwoods, recognizes the Briarwoods for what they really are, a sadistic couple that slaughtered his family.
Yes. Spoiler, Silas is a vampire, and Delilah is this evil, dark sorceress. I think she's a warlock.
And what I will say, she did it for love. Initially, this started with good intentions. Silas was dying. She used the dark arts, which, if you've ever seen any kind of film with this, you know it always
You
ends
know it's gonna
bad.
end badly.
Think about Voldemort. Not that he was ever good, but he used the dark arts, and he became a man with no nose, a snake face. It did not end well. So eventually the dark force and I'm sorry, Silas and Delilah.
Yes.
That Delilah summoned expected some kind of payment. So she got the reward of getting her husband back, but he came back altered. Because magic always has a price.
Yes.
So Percy has to confront them. They're eating and dining in front of him. And of course, the other members of Vox Machina have no idea why Percy is responding to this couple. I mean, they are creepy, but he has no idea why he has such a... they have no idea why he's responding so viscerally to, to this couple.
Right.
And eventually Percy reveals this is what happened. And once they learn this, as the good friends that they are, they decide, okay, we're going to help you.
Right.
So this is the return stage, or I guess it's the return stage. No, sorry. It's still in the flight stage, I guess. So they go to his hometown, which has undergone tremendous changes, to say the least. There's
it's deplorable what the Briarwoods have done to Whitestone. There's giants roaming around. There's undead patrolling the streets.
And I actually watched the campaign moment, because there's a scene when Vox Machina goes, there's this, it was once beautiful tree in the center of the town.
It's called the Sun Tree.
And the Sun Tree has powers, but it's basically it's suffering the effects of the dark magic that's sort of taken over the town.
Yes.
And when they come up to the tree, they see these figures hanging from it. And Matthew Mercer, like, I saw the campaign moment when he's describing what they're seeing.
Yeah.
And the moment when the other role players realize, oh my God, we know who these characters are supposed to be. So essentially the figures who have been hung from the tree are supposed to represent the members of Vox Machina.
Yes. And
so basically the Briarwoods have saying, we know you're here.
Yeah.
We did this to innocent people. We can do it to you. You've been warned, essentially. And it's their attempt almost at intimidating them and frightening them from really pursuing whatever it is they're here to do.
Yeah.
Vox Machina is shaken, understandably, but at the same time, they realize they have to go on.
Yeah.
The people need them.
I mean, it's like, it's not a, it's not within their knee-jerk reaction to be like, we are heroes, we're here to defend you, let's go and do what we do best. They are understandably very unsettled about what they see on the Sun Tree, and they are questioning and doubting whether or not they can help Whitestone or even defeat the Briarwoods, but they ultimately decide that, it's a good idea to help. And especially help Percy as well.
Exactly. And Percy obviously is going through his own thing, because he has, and you learn, spoilers, that he has made a pact with this demon.
Demon of vengeance.
Because obviously Percy was metaphorically and literally consumed by vengeance.
Yeah.
So he puts this cool plague, I call it the plague doctor mask.
It is a plague doctor mask, so you got the right thing.
Cool.
Yes.
He puts it on, and that's when he adopts this other, no nonsense, I'm going to kill you. And he has this epic gun with the name etched in of each person that he's going to kill.
Yep.
And naturally, his friends, whenever they see him get so taken over, they're naturally concerned. It's like, because Percy is, they know how he is. It's like, okay, this is not who he wants to be.
Yeah.
So in addition to the villains they have to fight along the way to eventually get to the Briarwoods, they also have to contend with one of their own who at any moment, and there is a moment where he actually does turn on the members.
Yes.
Because he becomes so consumed by the demon that the demon decides, okay, I need to take over for you.
Right.
Because you're not doing this fast enough.
Right.
But eventually, they do defeat the Briarwoods.
They do. Yep.
In an epic fashion, because Pike returns, because Pike had to go on her own mini spiritual journey, because she felt that she had lost connection to her deity. She returns. Some people thought she was like a Deus Ex Machina. I didn't think so.
No.
I always knew she was going to return anyway. And it's not like it's her alone that defeats the Briarwoods. It's still a team effort.
It is a team effort.
But she does come back. Grog is extremely happy. Yeah, I was happy too.
Well, I mean, what's interesting is that Ashley Johnson, who plays as Pike and who voices Pike, she actually had to leave to go to New York because they're all based in Los Angeles, naturally.
Oh, okay.
But she had to leave to go to New York because she was filming a movie or a TV series at the time that she was part of. So the animators actually went back and did a story for her.
Okay.
And yeah, so that's why that you have that split in the group.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thankfully, Vox Machina defeats the Briarwoods. They are ousted. Light returns. The Sun Tree is awakened. Everything is good in the world. Percy is Percy again.
Yep,
He hasn't been completely consumed by vengeance anymore. I think he breaks away with his demon.
he does.
So I think we kind of covered the flight, the return. So the next step would be Elixir, according to Joseph Campbell. So this is the object, knowledge, or blessing that the hero acquired during the adventure is now put to use in the everyday world. Often it has a restorative or healing function, but it also serves to define the hero's role in the society.
Right. So, I mean, they don't really gain anything. Pike becomes, I think, if anything, Pike gets her power back. Like, she's not doubtful anymore about who she wants to be, who she feels she has to be. And I think it's the spirit of the eternal fire or the eternal flame. One of them. It's been a little bit since I've seen this series, so forgive me if I'm wrong. But her power is restored to her, and as a cleric, she has the ability to heal party members within the campaign. So I think in Joseph Campbell's example of Elixir, Pike is who they gain during and after the defeat of
I think
the
so,
Briarwoods.
definitely. And also, in addition to her power, she regains the knowledge that she was never abandoned by the light.
Right.
It was her own doubt and fear that sort of severed
Right.
that connection.
Right.
So she gains that inner understanding. And the other members, I think, also become stronger together. Percy is no longer consumed by vengeance. He finds out that one of his sisters actually survived the brutality of that night.
Cassandra.
And Cassandra is around to sort of lead the people because she's obviously more level-headed, and Percy acknowledges this, that, you know, you're what our people need. So Percy also gains that closure.
Yep.
And he's able to move on. And also going back to Caliph, she also gains more confidence.
She
because
does.
one of the major issues that she has is that she freezes whenever there's any kind of conflict.
Yep. It's because she has she feels she doesn't have confidence in herself to lead her Ashari. The Air Ashari is her people. Once her wandering is over, she fears that, and she fears not being capable enough to help the party members in Vox Machina. But then again, that's also how the rolling of the die went as well with Marisha Ray when she was playing the actual game. Okay, so yeah,
But I think it also, while I understand that's what in a way it still seems natural for that character. Because when you first see her, she's very soft-spoken, and you almost wonder what she's doing with the rest of them. Like, she seems to really stick out.
Yeah.
But she has her gifts, she has her strengths, and in the end, she comes through. She is able to help her team, so she grows as a person as well. And then finally, home. So the hero comes back from this mysterious adventure with the power to bestow boons on his fellow man. And I guess this would be when Vox Machina returns once again to the kingdom and says, this is what happened. This is what the Briarwoods did, but we've taken care of it. But there's a twist. Spoiler. Dragons are coming. Dragons. So the first threat that they faced was not exactly squashed. And that's how the
season ends. Luckily, this whole endeavor started with like a Kickstart project. The Critical Role, the voice actors really wanted to do an animated series from a while ago, and they asked for donations by fans. They didn't think that they were going to get, like, they thought they were going to get like a few $1,000s. I can't remember exactly what their target goal was. They went beyond their targeted goal and got $11 million out of this Kickstarter. And now they have enough money to do at least 2 seasons. So we have a second season coming. We don't know when, though.
We don't know when, but best believe that Faerie, Fable, Librarians, we will be discussing
We will.
season 2.
Yes, we
when
will.
It comes out.
Absolutely.
So this is how we sort of utilized Joseph Campbell's Monomyth Theory for Vox Machina. And as we've discussed, it can be applied to any story, like, you know, the Star Wars, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, Katniss Everdeen, any story that you can think of, some aspect of this Monomyth Theory can be applied to it. And I think it made it fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
To sort of see how we could use this as a guide for understanding what the characters go through and their overall journey.
Yep.
So I don't think I have anything else to add.
I don't really think I have anything else to add either. I just, I love why, like, I'm subscribed to Critical Role. I'm watching their current campaign, which is a lot of fun, and their characters are hilarious, and I highly recommend anyone who is interested in Dungeons and Dragons or just the story aspect of it. I highly recommend checking them out. They're amazing.
And if you are also interested in learning more about Joseph Campbell's theory, there is a really great YouTube channel called Crash Course. And they have their whole monomyth series where they analyze myths from all over the world through the lens of Joseph Campbell's monomyth theory. They're really fun, really engaging, so I would recommend you check their channel out. And thank you again for joining Katie and I
Yes,
for
thank
this
you.
discussion. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.